a shadowed existence. Widowhood in the developing world. In many developing countries, becoming a widow is not just a personal tragedy. It is a social and economic crisis. Cultural norms and traditions often cast a long shadow over widows, dictating their behavior, limiting their choices, and marginalizing their place in society. These women face a unique set of challenges, often compounded by poverty, lack of education, and limited access to resources. Widows are often left to fend for themselves, with little to no support from their communities or governments. Many turn to small-scale, informal work to survive, but these efforts are often not enough to lift them out of poverty. Social stigma and discrimination further isolate them, making it difficult to access basic services like healthcare and education. However, there are glimmers of hope. Support groups and NGOs are working tirelessly to provide widows with the skills and resources they need to rebuild their lives. Through vocational training and education, many widows are finding new ways to support themselves and their families. Community initiatives are also helping to change perceptions, slowly breaking down the barriers of stigma and discrimination. By coming together, these women are not only improving their own lives, but also paving the way for future generations. Widowhood in the developing world is a complex issue, but with continued support and awareness, we can help these women find hope and dignity once more. Levirate marriage, an ancient practice, a modern dilemma. This age-old tradition, deeply embedded in the fabric of many ancient cultures, has been both a source of continuity and controversy. It is a practice that has withstood the test of time, yet it faces increasing scrutiny in the modern era. Levirate marriage, an ancient practice rooted in patrilineal societies, continues to impact the lives of widows in various parts of the developing world. In these communities, the tradition is seen as a way to protect the widow and her children, ensuring they remain within the familial fold. However, the implications of this practice are far-reaching and complex. This custom dictates that a widow must marry her deceased husband's brother or another male relative, ensuring the continuation of the family line and the preservation of property within the family. The practice is often justified as a means of providing social security and stability, but it also raises significant ethical and human rights concerns. While often presented as a form of social security for widows, levirate marriage frequently results in the curtailment of their freedom and autonomy. Widows may find themselves trapped in unwanted marriages with little say in their own futures. The practice can perpetuate cycles of dependency and limit opportunities for personal growth and independence. In some cases, it can even lead to abuse and exploitation. As societies evolve and women's rights gain more recognition, the practice of levirate marriage is increasingly being challenged. Activists and organizations are working tirelessly to provide widows with alternatives, advocating for their right to choose their own paths. The dilemma remains: how to honor cultural traditions while ensuring the rights and dignity of individuals are upheld. This ancient practice, steeped in history, continues to spark debate and calls for reform in our modern world. Trapped by tradition. The plight of widows in levirate societies, these women, often left without a voice, face numerous challenges that are deeply rooted in cultural and societal norms. Widows in societies where levirate marriage is practiced often find themselves trapped in a cycle of vulnerability and dependence. The tradition dictates that a widow must marry a brother of her deceased husband, a practice that strips her of autonomy and forces her into relationships she may not desire. They may be pressured to marry a brother-in-law they barely know, which can lead to further emotional and psychological distress. This pressure is not just from the family, but also from the community, which upholds these traditions as sacred and unchangeable. In many cases, widows are forced to relinquish their inheritance to their deceased husband's family. This financial dependency makes it nearly impossible for them to break free from the cycle of control and subjugation. Without access to their rightful inheritance, they are left with limited options for survival. This lack of agency deprives widows of their basic human rights, including the right to choose their own partners and control their own lives. Many widows are beginning to stand up against these injustices, attending community meetings and protests to demand their rights and seek justice. Despite the overwhelming challenges, there is hope. Some widows are finding ways to empower themselves through education and vocational training. These opportunities provide them with the skills and knowledge needed to become self-sufficient and reclaim their independence. The journey is long and arduous, but with continued support and advocacy, change is possible. A glimmer of hope. Empowering widows through legal reform. Addressing the challenges faced by widows requires a multi-pronged approach, with legal reform at its core. Enacting and enforcing laws that protect widows' inheritance rights, property rights, and freedom of marriage is crucial. Governments must take concrete steps to eliminate discriminatory practices and ensure that widows have equal access to justice and legal recourse. Breaking the cycle of poverty, economic empowerment for widows. Economic empowerment is essential to enable widows to become self-sufficient and break free from the cycle of poverty. This includes providing access to education, vocational training, microfinance initiatives, and entrepreneurial opportunities. By equipping widows with the skills and resources they need to support themselves and their families, we can help them regain their independence and build a brighter future. Challenging cultural norms, education and awareness campaigns. Changing deeply ingrained cultural norms and perceptions surrounding widowhood requires sustained education and awareness campaigns. These campaigns should target not only women, but also men, community leaders and religious figures. By promoting gender equality, challenging harmful traditions and fostering empathy and understanding, we can create a more just and equitable society for widows. Building a safety net, social support for widows. Establishing comprehensive social support networks is vital to provide widows with the emotional, practical and financial assistance they need. This includes access to counselling services, support groups, healthcare, childcare and legal aid. By creating a safety net for widows, we can help them navigate the challenges of widowhood with dignity and resilience. A global imperative, international cooperation for widows' rights. Addressing the plight of widows is not just a national issue, but a global imperative. International organizations, governments, and NGOs must work together to share best practices, provide technical assistance, and advocate for policies that promote and protect the rights of widows worldwide. A brighter future. Envisioning a world where widows thrive. Imagine a world where widowhood is no longer synonymous with destitution and despair, a world where widows are empowered to rebuild their lives, pursue their dreams, and contribute to their communities. This is the future we must strive to create. A future where widows are not defined by their loss, but by their strength, resilience, and unwavering spirit. A call to action. Stand up for widows' rights. The time for action is now. Let us stand in solidarity with widows around the world, amplifying their voices, challenging discriminatory practices, and advocating for their rights. Together, we can break the chains of tradition, empower widows, and create a more just and equitable world for all.